Alrighty, friends. So today we're going to be talking about how inflation and interest rates affect your money directly. Part one, we're going to be diving into understanding inflation and its impact. And then part two is the role of interest rates in loans, savings, and investments. So let's jump into it. So part one, understanding inflation and its impact. How inflation erodes purchasing power. So most of us have a general idea of what inflation is, how it comes about, but we're going to briefly cover that again. So inflation is a gradual rise in prices over time, reducing the value of money. And so that can happen for multiple reasons. And one of the largest reasons that we know of, especially, I would say the majority of governments, but we definitely saw the last couple of years in the US as well. Your money also loses value when the government prints more money. And so essentially, when we talk about inflation, we can break it down to $1 today buys less in the future, meaning savings that don't grow lose real value. So if you are stacking up money in your savings account, you're on average historically losing 3% per year if you live in the US and you're collecting US dollars. So you're losing real value if you're not combating inflation. So we're going to be talking about some, surefire ways to actually combat inflation and, for the long term. And so we'll jump into that a little more in depth. So if inflation averages 3% per year, and that's what it has been, if you look at the historical data in the US, past 10 years is right around 2.9%. And I rounded up to 3% just for the example of these numbers that I'm about to give to you guys. But like in 2020 or 21, inflation was around 7.1% that year. So if you had 100 grand in your savings account, you lost 7% of its real value that year alone. So, investing in smart assets is, crucial if you want to, retire one day. Otherwise, you're continually lose money over time, and you're just going to be put in a really rough spot. So, something that costs $100 today will cost you about $134 in 10 years. And for some of us, that seems like a lot. For some of us, it doesn't seem like a lot. But let's take that further. And let's say you're 20 or 30 years old and you're saving for retirement, or you're interested in starting a retirement fund. So in 20 years, the same thing that might cost you $100 today will cost you $180. In 30 years, that looks like $242. And in 40 years, for anyone in their mid-20s right now, when you're looking to retire, something that would cost $100 today is going to cost you $326 in 40 years. So that $1 million that you have, maybe your parents left you in your savings account, you are truly that looks more like $300,000. So in today's money. And so I hope that puts it in perspective a little bit about how dangerous inflation can be if you're not combating it. And so today's lesson is broken down to, essentially give you guys some agency and some wherewithal and knowledge to be like, okay, I need to actually put in place some things to protect my wealth every single year. And luckily, with everything we have today, all of our resources, that's not as hard as it sounds. So what can you do about inflation? To maintain financial health, you must grow at a rate that at least matches inflation or exceeds it. So I would highly recommend, again, I'm not a financial advisor, but what I would do is avoid holding too much cash in low interest accounts. So most of us bank with big banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, so on and so forth. And most of their savings account is paying you an interest rate of 0.01%. 0.01% for you to give them your cash, and they can do whatever they want with it, and they're paying you 0.01% of it back annually. And so a great way to combat inflation is just move your savings account to a high yield savings account. Personally, I use just set up an account with American Express. If you look right now, and these will change over time, American Express high yield savings account will pay you out 3.8% per year of whatever you're holding in there, which if we look at the historical data in the US with inflation, you are already beating inflation by 0.8%. Which is super good. And there are other high yield savings accounts that will pay out even more, up to 4%. I've seen some up to like 4.5%, which is just crazy. The reason I went with something a little bit lower, like American Express, is because they're much bigger. Their customer service is great. And they don't have any in-person locations. They partner with tons of ATMs, and I've got a credit card with them, and their customer service has just been fantastic. Trying to get a hold of them and just their overall software. So that's why I went with them, a little bit lower and just a little more trustworthy to me. But if you guys don't have a high yield savings account, it takes you maybe 30 minutes or less to set up. 30 minutes is probably on the higher end. Just highly recommend it, and just look it up for yourself, like NerdWallet or something like that online. What is the best high yield savings account? But you know, what I personally do is Amex, and their software is great for that. So moving past that, that's a one surefire way to fight inflation. And currently, looking at historical data, you're going to beat inflation, which is awesome. But let's talk about beating it more than just 0.8%. So the role of interest rates in loans, savings, and investments. So why interest rates matter. So we're going to jump into a little bit more on the investing side here. So interest rates control the cost of borrowing and the return on savings and investments. So for example, when rates rise, loans like mortgages become much more expensive, while savings accounts and bonds offer higher returns. And so this is why when it comes to real estate, like most investments, time in the market will always beat timing the market. And what I mean by that is, you know, jumping into investment now rather than waiting for the perfect entry to jump into it. So again, I'll repeat that one more time. You know, like most investments, real estate included, time in the market beats timing the market. So for example, buying a rental property now instead of later. When rates are high, the property, the commercial asset, the property, the house, whatever it is typically much cheaper because loans are more expensive and they want to stay competitive and still sell their property. And when rates drop, you can always refinance and you'll pay much less in interest over time. And this is pretty fundamental, but we have to remember, for most of us in our mid-20s to mid-30s, that is the main demographic in this community. You know, retirement is going to sneak up on us very quickly. And if we're not actively planning for it, we will continue, if you're not already, live paycheck to paycheck. And maybe you will, you know, have a nice savings account by the time you retire. But just remember, throughout retirement, that savings account may be losing more value than you're able to earn an interest on it. So I just want you guys to keep that stuff in mind. So again, when it comes to real estate and long-term investments, getting in now rather than later is so important. And things like compound interest, when we look at high yield savings accounts and dividend sharing stocks and stuff like your Roth IRA and your Roth 401ks, where this stuff really plays a huge difference getting in early. And so vice versa, when we're talking about jumping in when rates are high, you know, when rates are low, yes, you're going to be paying typically a premium in the price, but what it does allow you to do is secure a low interest rate from the start on your mortgage or loan. And looking at that long term, it's much easier to price in if that property is going to make you money. So for example, I just bought a rental property in Alabama, and interest rates are, you know, relatively high right now. But what I'm planning on doing, I'm able to pencil the numbers, make everything work right now. And when rates do drop, I'm able to refinance while I'm only a year to 2 years, maybe 3 years into the property, refinance. And then I kind of best of both worlds. I'm paying less on the actual house, and then I'll be paying less in interest over time. And that's the name of the game. It's just getting in as early as you can, even though things may be tight right now. That's the name of the game, is playing it, your cards as they're dealt when it comes to investments. John, I need a big trade. So we're waiting for it. How are you guys doing on trades lately? Price action this early year has been pretty crazy. I've been very lenient jumping into trades lately. Or very conservative, I should say. So moving forward, things like paying attention to the Federal Reserve decisions can be super beneficial, because rate changes and impacts on debt costs and investment opportunities directly. So I know we pay attention to it here, and so hopefully that comes natural to you, paying attention to FOMC decisions and discussions. That stuff matters, and it directly affects your money now and your money in the future. So hopefully you guys are starting to pay attention to this stuff and setting yourself up for success. And at the very minimum, just look into a high yield savings account, because right now, if you have a bunch of money stacked up in your 0.01% return in Wells Fargo or Bank of America or Chase, you're doing yourself a great disservice. So moving forward, and lastly, what I have for you guys here is, how to hedge against inflation through investment. And so this is talking about doing more than just 1% over inflation rate or 0.8% over inflation rate with a high yield savings account. So diversifying investments to include assets that benefit from inflation, such as real estate, commodities, and stocks, is a fantastic way to directly hedge against inflation. And again, that's why getting into the housing market and real estate, I believe 80% of the self-made millionaires in America got to where they are. And that's first generation millionaires, self-made. 80% of them are made through real estate. And that happens relatively quickly. Just think about where you were, 6 years ago, 2019, 6 years ago now, how fast time goes by. And the same thing's going to happen when you look back in 10 or 20 years, be like, man, I really should have cleaned up my budget and, invested into some real estate, or at least started my Roth IRA or my Roth 401k, or, really whatever benefits I have with my employer, I really should have looked into matching or maxing out my Roth 401k or my traditional 401k. This stuff matters, and it's going to sneak up on you. Getting in early is just giving yourself such a great opportunity. And essentially, when you build it into your budget, you don't even think about it. That money's automatically transferred out as soon as it hits your checking account. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to think about at the end of the month when everything's tight, like, oh man, I don't have any money to put in my Roth IRA. I can't invest right now. It's too tight. But then you go download some software like Rocket Money and look at your subscriptions, and you're paying, $300 a month on subscriptions, paying $50 a month in coffee, and, $150 to $350 eating out. And you're like, yeah, I don't know where the time went. Why am I living paycheck to paycheck? The simple budgeting and knowing what your expenses are and what your income is, truly, that's how self-made millionaires are made. And it only takes 15, 20, 25 years. It seems like a long time, but you're going to look back and be like, man, I really should have done what this guy's doing. I really should have done what she's doing. And then you'll probably be in the same position where you're like, oh, it's probably too late now. I'll just try to get a better job, or, get a raise in my career, whatever it looks like. Doing $50 a week for long-term investing started in January. That's awesome. That's how it starts. That's the same thing when things get really tight for me. I never will. This has been a tradition for the last couple. When did I join? Wow. I joined 2019, 6 years ago. That's crazy how it's a fast time is flying. But this has been a tradition now for 6 years of long-term investments. Like if any of you guys were in the service, they have a thrift savings plan, but similar to a 401k. And I've been investing when I have lots of expendable cash. I put a lot of money towards that. And then when things get really tight, even if I have to really clamp down on my budget, I never cut off that stream to long-term investment. Even if it's $20 a month, you can find $20 a month. And if you really, really can't, I mean, it is really time to put your nose to the grindstone and get to work. But just at $20 and $50 a week, like you're doing, I mean, that is how self-made millionaires are made. And then in one generation, if you teach your kids these same fundamental principles that are fairly simple, you just have to do it. Now you're leaving them with, even, we've talked about Roth IRAs here before, investing for 5 years, when you're 25 years old till you're 30 years old, maxing out your Roth IRA at $7,000, around $35,000 investment, you're looking at, more than $1 million by the time you retire. If you continue to invest in just your Roth IRA, that account can look like $4 million if you invest properly. Like in just S&P 500 alone is returning at just over 10% per year historically right now. And other indexes are sitting at 13.6%, like some fairly incredible returns. And when we talk about interest only being 3%, that 3% is already counteracted by your high yield savings account. So your money is protected and already making money just sitting in your savings account. And then you take that other income that you're pushing towards your Roth IRA, 401k, your traditional 401k, and your traditional brokerage account, in sitting in indexes that are doing 10%, 11%, 12%, 13%. You have a bull year and you're sitting at 20% returns on your money. You start that at 25, 35 years of age, and 30 or 40 years. That is easily $10 million, but that's really hard to fathom right now. But breaking that down and doing the simple equations online, any of these calculators, all these massive brokerages and institutions are like, hey, this is how you do it. Look at Warren Buffett. It's these low risk investments that he's making that pay out high dividends over the years. Now, I mean, it is very simple, but we still have to do the work. We have to take time, review your budget monthly. Where do you need to cut back? Where can you spend a little more? And where can you invest a little more? And over time, you're really going to see the fruits of your labor. And when you have that $3 to $10 to $15 million in 40 years from now, just by doing these simple investments and teaching your kids these foundational steps, what does that look like for even the next generation? Your kids are going to be in a phenomenal position, able to go to, if they're get in any school they want, they have any opportunity that they want, and you're able to give that to them. And what does the third generation look like if you continue to, instill these foundational principles into them? And that's why they talk about the rich getting richer. This is what it comes down to, that compound interest over time. And obviously it seems very difficult, when you're working paycheck to paycheck, but you also need to put in the work to become financially literate, to look at your income versus your expenses. It's like, okay, here's where I am now. Here's where I want to be, and make some smart goals. In 1 year, it's like, this job is not, I'll end up capping out at a place where I don't want to be. I need to start looking for a different position, a different career path, whatever it is for you. Or maybe you really like your job and you just need to be better about your expenses and start investing now, instead of saying like, oh yeah, next year I'll start. These basic principles are this is what keeps America's middle class stuck in the middle class, and the wealth separation is just growing bigger and bigger. And there's massive opportunities on the horizons for all of us, but we need to put in the work and we need to be educated about this stuff. And luckily, today's day and age, we have all of the information we could possibly need at our fingertips and in front of our eyes. So that's what today's lesson was mostly trying to cover, some truly surefire ways of how to combat inflation and what interest rates really mean for you and your retirement plan. But mostly today was about just trying to get your the gears turning in your head that, yeah, I need to really sit down and look at my budget and be like, okay, I could start putting, $50, $100 a month in my Roth IRA. What does that look like over time? I can just punch that into a calculator. Boom, there I am. But you guys have to start thinking about this stuff. I mean, otherwise you're going to look back at in 20 or 30 or 40 years, like living off your Social Security that is right now behind inflation rates. So you're losing money over time. So I hope you guys, learned a little something, or at least I got your gears turned a little bit. So I leave you guys with this. Inflation and interest rates have a direct impact on your money. By understanding how inflation erodes purchasing power, using interest rates to your advantage, and strategically hedging through smart investments, you can protect and grow your wealth over time. And again, I know this stuff is basic, but it is foundational. And without these foundations, you're going to be chasing, pocket change, and it's going to be, a hard life financially. You may have a fantastic life, but your savings accounts are going to be eaten up quickly. And hope you guys are now at a position where you can look back and be like, okay, yeah, I need to start looking at my budget. Just jump on Google Sheets, look for budgeting software. There's lots of templates on there for free, and start doing put 30 minutes into it today, put an hour into it every month, and you will see how powerful exponential growth is. So that's all the curriculum I got for you guys today. I do want to open this up to any questions, comments, concerns, whatever you guys got for me. And also if you want to see more of this content, because I think too often, what I see in this community and abroad is we're focused on how to make money right now. And we're not paying attention to what happens or what we do with the money that we do make. And I know plenty of people, I promise you, very intimate relationships that I have of people making a lot of money and somehow they're still broke. And you say to yourself, well, if I'm making this much money, or once I get to this income, I will start, doing these foundational principles. And that's the same mindset that all these extremely rich people have, and they're broke and they're in massive amounts of debt. And as soon as that income stream stops, it's like, holy crap, I'm in a lot of trouble and I need to figure this out. So I hope you guys are not in that mindset, and you can sit down and look at your budget and your income, even if it's not where you want it to be. I promise you'll be able to squeeze out some money for investments, even if it's $20 a month. Start squeezing that stuff out now, because in 40 and 30 or 40 years, these small things are going to make all the difference. And otherwise, you'll be left behind, and it's going to be an interesting role. It's just going to be another stressor on your life when you're looking back and going on trips and spending time with family, but you can't because your Social Security isn't paying enough. Inflation has destroyed what it is paying, and you have to now go get a job at 65 years old, 75 years old. And that stuff breaks my heart when I see that stuff. And I hope you guys don't find yourselves there just by doing the little things. So I know I go on tangents sometime, but this stuff is important. And that stuff really does break my heart when I hear those stories and see those people having to go back and get jobs. So Joshua says, do you have any dividend stocks you trying to invest to? I have a couple. All of my long-term retirement stuff is in indexes, specifically NASDAQ and the S&P 500. But I actually do have an ongoing list for when my income does increase of some more, I don't know if risky is the right words, just there some of these different high dividend indexes that have come out over the past couple of years. There's just not a ton of historical data to support it. but I would invest in them nonetheless. But there's indexes exclusively made for high dividend stocks and stuff like Apple. I don't know if you guys, this may be off. You guys should fact check me here, but I believe Warren Buffett, what did he do with Apple last year? Apple pays out high dividends, and I think his company, Berkshire Hathaway, made like $600 billion on Apple dividends last year. I mean, just insane stuff. But I just looked at something on an index that was returning at like 13.8% for high dividend stuff, and that high dividend returns exponentially over time. If you just invest all that, you're like Roth IRA or something, that's going to be exponential over time instead of that, that 2 point, I think at 25 years old, if you start maxing out your Roth IRA this year until you're 65 years old, so 40 years of investment, that's close to $4 million if someone wants to check that right now. But that's right around 10% average return. But even NASDAQ is outperforming that historically at like 13% or something. I don't know. Do your own research. I'm not a financial advisor, but I am here to really get your gears turning and look into this stuff yourself. But I will find that for you. Actually, if you guys want to stick around, Jojo, I don't know when you want to start your session. I don't know if you're just in here or let me know if I need to jump out right here, but I could try to find some stuff for you right now. I have an ongoing list that I just need to jump to quickly, if you'll bear with me. How's everybody's risk management looking? And I'm asking specifically in a public setting because it's a good opportunity to admit to yourself and to others and have some accountability in your life. Like, where is your risk management at? And do you know it needs improvement? Have you just recently blown an account? Are you not following risk parameters that you know you should be? How are you guys doing through this tough price action the last couple of weeks and months, actually? Good. It's getting better. Good. That's great. And I hope you guys know that we all will have setbacks that feel pretty devastating, to where you're doing really well. You find yourself in a good position long term, as far as, continuing to make money. You're holding on to an account, you're getting close to a cash out. Maybe you do get a cash out, maybe it's a couple, and then all of a sudden you go and you lose 1, 2, 3 accounts all in one day, and it feels like this massive setback. But I need you guys to look back on your progress over time and say, I have been getting 1% better every day, sometimes 2% better every day. And this is just one step back, but I'm continuing to make steps forward every single day. So when you get down, it is really easy to find yourself in a position where you're like, okay, I don't know what just happened. This really sucks. But knowing that you are continually putting in the work and setting up your systems and your habits to grow over time, that's what really matters. And I hope you guys are, when times do get tough, I hope you can go take a walk and take a deep breath and gain some perspective on where you really are at. So let me check really quickly. I think this list is somewhere right on here. All right, let me look up this right here. It's a dividend. I believe it's dividend index. The ticker is SCHD. Returns. Wow. Let me see. So it's a Charles Schwab US dividend equity ETF, and the ticker is I'll put it out for you, SCHD. And 1 year return 14%, 3 year return 6%. So I'm not sure what the historical data is on this. You'll have to do more research. To be honest with you, I haven't done a ton of research in high dividend stocks, like blue chip stocks, though I do have some investments in that. But most of my stuff is looking at VU or QQQ for long-term stuff. But again, that's just me. I'm sure you'll find success in a ton of different mutual funds, traditional funds and ETFs, whatever floats your boat. But I'm just trying to get your gears turning towards, combating inflation and setting yourself up for success. Because again, it does not matter how much money you make if you don't have these foundational financial principles in your back pocket. You can make $500,000 a year and you will be broke. You will be living paycheck to paycheck. And that may sound crazy to you, but you're probably doing the same thing right now. And for anyone who makes, I believe, more than $30,000 a year, you're in the top 1% in the world. I know that's in the very low in the US, but when you look at truly where your position is, you're in the top 1% in the world if you're making $30,000 a year. And I know it's easy to look at societal standards and say, well, rent's this much and I'm paying this much and this much. Sure, yes, but you could absolutely live below your means, but you're choosing not to. You may say, I don't have a choice. Life has put me here and here and here. Take responsibility and agency of your own life and understand that you very much so could be living under your means right now and putting yourself in that position to then invest. So taking discipline to heart, sacrificing what you want now for what you want in the future. You truly, if you are mid-20s, mid-30s, you could be more than a millionaire by the time you're 60 to 70 years old. Multi-millionaire sitting on cash, not just your assets and equity and net worth. Your retirement fund could be at $5-10+ million at whatever income you're at right now. And I know that's a generalization that may very well not be true, but I hope you guys really do take agency over your own life and not just say, well, life has put me here. The economy is here. My job's done this, my spouse, my kids. Take agency of where you are and understand that you very much so can make a change in your own life. And that's a very powerful understanding to have. So you remember, I always, for when I think, oh man, I want to make this much and this much, I really do have to humble myself and understand that I believe more than $30,000 a year is putting me at the top 1% in the world. And that is pretty incredible. There's billions of people making less than $4 a day, and a lot of people making a lot less than that. So hope you guys, as much as this community is about making more money, I hope you guys do have these basic foundational principles that should be applicable across the board, regardless of what your income is, what your expenses are. And if you're not where you want to be on that debt to income ratio, or expense to income ratio, whatever you want to call it, make up a plan, get your budget in focus, understand what your expenses to income really looks like. And if you need to make changes, start a plan on how to make those changes and how to get there. Even if it's in 3 years, that's relatively quick when we look at, or relatively soon when we look at what really matters is, this 20, 30, 40-year plan. What are you going to leave for your children? Where do you want to be? How do you want to be spending your time? All that stuff really does matter. So again, I apologize for the rants, but I hope this gave you a little bit of perspective today. So that's all I got for you guys. You guys got anything for me before I let you go? Joe's about to start his session here in about 20 minutes. Cool, folks. Well, I do appreciate you for Joshua. If you are looking for other stuff, I only do 2 indexes for my Roth and 401k stuff. It's VU and QQQ. There's other brokerages that will do the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, but that's what I'm doing. And then total market exposure, if you're looking at Vanguard, VTI, I'll type these out for you really quick if you guys are just curious and want a basic starter kit of stuff that I'm looking at. I'm putting them out in the chat right now. And then this one was a high dividends, CHD. And then also, really quickly before I do let you guys go, in the tab, on this Discord, look over to your left, strategic selects. If you do want to increase more than 10%, 11%, 12% per year, that is what that tab is dedicated to, following investment icons, politicians and hedge fund managers, and icons like Berkshire Hathaway, and following Warren Buffett stuff. That stuff's up to date, and I'm keeping that stuff up to date. And that's for you guys to follow if you really do have an interest in what that looks like. And then high yield, let's see, VYM as well. So there's some stuff I'm looking at if you guys just wanted to see. You seen Jeppy? No. What is that? Man, stay hydrated. Yes, sir, Jody, appreciate you. Also, the amount of water you drink matters less than what your or it doesn't matter as much if your sodium content in your blood and tissues are low. You're not going to be able to retain that water. So if you don't already, and you don't have electrolytes that you're getting insufficiently, even just a pinch of salt in your water is really going to help you retain that water. No, I'll check it out. Most of the stuff I stick with is Vanguard, probably just because of the stuff I researched. It's more prominent. But I'm always looking at this stuff, so I'll add that to my list right now. I'm assuming the ticker is GEPI or JEPI. Cool. Like you were saying, though, it doesn't have enough historical data, but it'd be good to put on the watch list. Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And actually, since you're here and you guys seem to be engaged, most of long-term stuff, like I think the entirety, I could actually check right now if I pull up my other account. The entirety of my Roth IRA, I believe, is in VU right now. So all Vanguard stuff. Let's pull it up though. But looking at high dividend and high yield stuff is what I'm going to be transitioning to for my traditional brokerages. Put on my password right now. See if I remember it. Nice. Let's see. I'm with Charles Schwab, by the way, if anyone was curious. Okay, VU and SPY. So there you go. I'm in. So Vanguard, S&P 500, and then a different brokerage, S&P 500. Yeah, pretty straightforward. And then I'm also an AOD, Total Dynamic Dividend. That is this ticker here. So that's for my traditional Roth, my Roth IRA. But I definitely look towards the less historical data and these higher dividends, higher yield stuff. And QQQ is also my next purchase for my Roth is going to be, because I think historical data on just QQQ is like 13% or something. Let me see, average return. Look at this, folks. Average return on the past 10 years on QQQ is 18.31%. That is just ridiculous. That is ridiculous. So, tracking stuff like this and following things like Nancy Pelosi and again, check out investment icons. That stuff is there for you guys. Those aren't the easiest to make. It's pretty easy to find, but making that stuff is not the easiest. So I'll put that in the chat in case you guys are wondering and looking into this stuff. Probably increased too because of AI. Yeah, I've no doubt in my mind that, dude, can you guys even imagine what technology is going to look like at the exponential rate it's at right now? Even the last 5 years, what AI has done, imagine in 15 years. I mean, it's going to be crazy. It is going to be crazy. Skynet is going to become a very potential real threat. But anyway, so my general outlook for long-term investments is max out if you are in an opportunity to where you're in a position where you have a 401k with your employer. Look into research what stocks you want to invest into. Max out your 401k. max out your Roth IRA, open or traditional. Again, I am not a financial advisor. This is just what I would do. Max out your Roth IRA. In Roth IRA and 401k, play it safe. Stuff like VU, S&P 500, QQQ, and total market. You can actually do a total, jump into an index that is the total global market or international, I should say, and then you could also do the total market of the US. But play it safe. That's anywhere from 10 to 13% annual return. And then your high yield savings account, you're already beating inflation with that high yield savings account. Now it's just 10%, 10 to 13%. You're just making money. Then you can look into even higher yield, high dividend stocks for once that stuff is maxed out and you're in a position where you do have a little bit more expendable income. You can start putting your traditional brokerages into this high yield stuff and start looking at indexes that are returning, though they have less historical data, they may be returning 22%. And maybe you're at a position where I'm moving into, I'm able to take a little more time off work. I'm paying more attention to my investments. I'm getting into real estate, starting to spread my wealth out into hard assets that, like the housing market. I can then look at stuff and start tracking people like Nancy Pelosi, Jim Simmons, Steve Cohen, Warren Buffett, Michael Burry. Those are the 5 that I have right now that you guys could, just so you guys understand, Pelosi's return last year was 51 to 53%. In 1 year, Nancy Pelosi's pushing that out. The crazy thing is she's not the only one doing that. Jim Simmons, if you guys track him and look at what I'm posting for you guys, 53% annual return. Are you kidding me? That stuff is insane if you're paying attention to it. So again, these foundational principles, putting in your money into smart stuff like VU, QQQ, once you're able to max out Roth IRA in your retirement fund, now it's, you can never guarantee anything in life, but essentially your retirement's done. You're set. You're going to, if you're 25 years old and you have 40 years to invest, and maxing out that Roth IRA, that's a $4 million account. If you're able to do the same with your 401k, an additional, potentially more, $5 million. And then everything else is just on top of that. And that's 40 years of just exponential growth and only $7,000 per year of investments for Roth IRA. Are you kidding me? It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. So I hope you guys, really are starting to look into this stuff and put your money into it. The Jim Cramer reverse, absolutely. What is that on? Who's doing that? Pilot? I forget. They're probably doing it. That stuff's hilarious. But yeah, there's money to be made, and it's pretty straightforward. So I appreciate you guys a ton. JoJo's got about 15 minutes before he jumps on, so I'll give you guys a break. Go get outside if you haven't been. Just walk around a little bit, get your blood flowing, maybe do some push-ups or something. Hydrate, put a little pinch of salt in your water if you don't have high blood pressure. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a financial advisor, but you guys are smart enough to figure it out. So I appreciate you guys a ton, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Love you guys, and